Sister-in-law's plan to ruin my pregnancy announcement backfires, ending in her arrest and divorce. At the start of our story, I had just announced my pregnancy, but my sister-in-law's plan to humiliate me at my husband's party took a wild turn, landing her in jail and facing a divorce. For context, I'm 29 and have been happily married to Harry for 7 years, except for one thorn in our side, his sister, Kayla. When I first met her, I liked her, but it didn't take long for me to see her true nature: manipulative, toxic, and always stirring up trouble. Over the years, I did my best to stay on her good side, but nothing could stop her negativity. Kayla was obsessed with controlling Harry's love life. She was upset when Harry didn't marry her best friend at 17 and even tried to set him up with another friend later. When we started dating, her attitude toward me was icy from the start, always bringing up Harry's exes and trying to make me feel like I wasn't good enough. She would even invite his exes to family dinners, pretending it was a coincidence. Harry found this strange too and would ask her to stop, but she just mocked me, accusing me of being jealous. Things escalated when Harry and I got engaged. Kayla threw a tantrum because she wasn't the first to know, and later sent me borderline threatening messages, warning me about how to treat her brother. She constantly criticized every aspect of our wedding, belittling my decisions and making me feel terrible. It reached a boiling point when I finally told her she was no longer invited to the wedding, which shocked her. She begrudgingly apologized, but I left her on read. I was too exhausted from her drama. On the day of the wedding, Kayla showed up in a black floor-length gown, looking like she was attending a funeral, and made a scene the entire time. My in-laws had to ask her to leave because she was upsetting everyone. After that, I kept my distance from her, especially when my son Nate was born. She tried to get involved, but my in-laws backed me up in keeping her away from my child. After suffering a miscarriage, Kayla's behavior softened for a bit, and we allowed her to be around Nate. She seemed to bond with him, and for a while, I thought she might have changed. But soon enough, she reverted to her old self, playing the victim, blaming others for her problems, and making everything about her. She got married to a man named Jamie, and while we weren't invited, we tried to support her from a distance. But things quickly fell apart in her marriage, and she came to stay with us, constantly complaining about her husband. Her fixation on my life became unsettling, with her accusing me of being unfaithful simply because I went to the gym. It all came to a head at a family gathering, where she made an outrageous claim, suggesting our son might not be Harry's. This was the final straw for Harry, who exploded in anger, telling Kayla she didn't deserve to be a mother and accusing her of projecting her own failures onto us. After that, we cut off all contact with her. Months later, we found out I was pregnant again, and we decided to announce the news at Harry's birthday party. Kayla showed up unexpectedly, apologizing for her past behavior and claiming she had been in therapy. Although I didn't believe her sincerity, I played along for the sake of peace at the party. When we shared the news of our pregnancy, everyone was thrilled, except Kayla, who seemed stunned and distant. Later, she handed me a dish of food, supposedly to make amends, but it had shrimp in it, which I'm highly allergic to. I was shocked that she would give me something so dangerous. Then something unexpected happened. Jamie, her husband, ate from the plate and had a severe allergic reaction. He collapsed and chaos erupted. Kayla accused me of switching plates, but everyone knew it wasn't true. Jamie ended up in the hospital, and after reviewing security footage, it became clear that Kayla had deliberately tampered with the food, intending to hurt me. Kayla was arrested and confessed to everything. Her actions finally caught up with her, and even her own parents were done defending her. She was charged with multiple offenses and is now facing serious consequences, including a divorce from Jamie. This whole situation has been overwhelming, especially being pregnant, but I'm thankful for the support of my husband and in-laws. We've cut ties with Kayla for good, and our lives have been much more peaceful without her constant drama. After Kayla's arrest, things took a dramatic turn. The security footage was irrefutable. It showed her handing me the plate she'd deliberately tampered with. While Jamie's recovery was slow, he eventually pulled through, but the trust between him and Kayla was broken beyond repair. He couldn't believe the woman he married could be capable of such a cruel act. Harry and I were left shaken by everything. We had always known Kayla had a dark side, but we never imagined she would go to such extreme lengths. For a long time, I blamed myself for the incident, wondering if I should have just tossed the plate aside or kept a closer eye on what was happening at the party. But my husband was quick to remind me that Kayla's actions were entirely her own, and I couldn't have predicted what she would do. As Kayla's court case unfolded, more of her past behavior came to light. She admitted to the police that she had been jealous of me from the start, ever since Harry and I first began dating. In her mind, she had always envisioned her brother marrying one of her close friends, and she saw me as an outsider who had stolen her dream. The news of our pregnancy at the party only added fuel to her jealousy, especially since she had been planning to reveal her own pregnancy, which had ended in a miscarriage. Hearing this during the court hearings was hard for all of us, but it helped us understand the depth of Kayla's resentment. The in-laws, who had always tried to give Kayla the benefit of the doubt, were devastated. My mother-in-law broke down in tears when Kayla confessed to intentionally trying to harm me, and my father-in-law couldn't even look at her during the proceedings. It was a heartbreaking realization that their daughter had caused so much pain. Kayla's husband, Jamie, finally decided to leave her. After months of trying to make their marriage work, he realized there was no salvaging their relationship. He had endured her manipulative behavior for too long, and this last incident with the poison plate was the final nail in the coffin. Despite everything, Jamie and I stayed in touch. He understood that what happened to him wasn't my fault, and I apologized profusely for handing him the plate, even though I couldn't have known what was going to happen. As for Harry and me, we were focused on moving forward. With another baby on the way, we had to prioritize our mental and emotional well-being, especially with the stress of Kayla's actions hanging over us. The pregnancy was a blessing, and we were determined not to let Kayla's toxic behavior overshadow the joy we felt. In the months following Kayla's arrest, Harry and I sat down with his parents to discuss how we wanted to handle the situation going forward. We all agreed that keeping Kayla out of our lives was the best decision for everyone. The emotional toll of dealing with her manipulations and schemes had been too much, and we needed a clean break to protect our family. The court eventually sentenced Kayla to time in jail for her actions. It wasn't a long sentence, but it was enough to send a clear message that her behavior had consequences. Throughout the ordeal, she tried to reach out to Harry and me, begging for forgiveness and trying to explain herself. But we had heard it all before, and we knew we couldn't allow her back into our lives. There had been too much damage. Now, as we prepare for the arrival of our second child, Harry and I are focusing on the future. Nate is growing up in a happy, healthy environment, surrounded by love and support. My in-laws have been incredibly protective of us, and they've made it clear that they will always have our backs. Even though Kayla's actions hurt them deeply, they are moving on too, and we're all committed to healing as a family. Looking back on everything that's happened, I feel a mix of emotions. There's relief that Kayla's influence is finally out of our lives, but there's also sadness for the person she could have been. Her jealousy consumed her to the point where she lost everything: her brother, her marriage, and her family's trust. For now, we're focused on the positive. Our family is growing, our bond is stronger than ever, and we're determined to leave the past behind. As we look toward the future, we're embracing the peace that has come from cutting toxic people out of our lives. Kayla's story may have ended in disaster, but for Harry, Nate, and me, a new chapter is just beginning. As the months passed, we found ourselves settling into a new normal free from Kayla's destructive presence. Harry and I were finally able to focus on the joy of expanding our family, without the constant cloud of drama that Kayla had brought into our lives for so long. My pregnancy was progressing smoothly, and as the due date approached, we became more excited about welcoming our new baby. Despite everything that had happened, there were times when the emotional scars from Kayla's betrayal resurfaced. Sometimes I found myself reflecting on the fact that she was Harry's only sibling, and how things might have been different if she hadn't been so consumed by envy. There were moments when I wished for reconciliation, not because I wanted her back in our lives, but because it would have meant that Harry didn't have to deal with the pain of losing a sister. But after everything she had done, there was no going back. Jamie, who had been granted a divorce from Kayla, continued to be a part of our extended family. He had become a close friend to Harry and me, and we invited him to all of our family gatherings. He even helped us decorate the nursery for our baby. Jamie admitted that being around our family gave him some comfort after his split from Kayla, and he found solace in knowing he was still welcome despite the circumstances. He had moved on, and while he was still processing the aftermath of his failed marriage, it was clear he had a sense of relief. Meanwhile, Kayla served her sentence quietly. From what we heard through mutual acquaintances, she was trying to rebuild her life, though it seemed she hadn't fully come to terms with the consequences of her actions. We weren't interested in reopening any doors with her, and we hoped she would stay far from us. The emotional roller coaster she had put us through was enough for a lifetime, and Harry and I had no desire to rekindle any sort of relationship with her, even after her release. As my due date approached, the support from my in-laws and close friends made all the difference. My mother-in-law, who had been heartbroken by Kayla's actions, became an even stronger pillar in my life, helping with Nate and making sure I had everything I needed for the baby. She confessed to me once in a quiet moment that losing Kayla had been incredibly painful for her. She was my daughter, she said, eyes filled with tears, but I had to choose what was right. It wasn't an easy decision for her to stand by me, but I was grateful every day that she had. Her love and loyalty meant the world to me, and it made our family bond even stronger. The day finally came when I went into labor. It was a moment filled with both excitement and a bit of nervousness, but as I held Harry's hand in the delivery room, I knew we were ready for whatever lay ahead. After hours of labor, our beautiful baby girl was born, healthy and perfect. The moment I held her in my arms, all the stress, fear, and heartache of the past seemed to fade away. She was our fresh start, a symbol of the love and strength we had as a family. We named her Grace, a name that felt fitting after everything we had been through. She was our little blessing, our miracle after all the chaos. Harry was overjoyed, and seeing him hold her for the first time filled my heart with an indescribable warmth. Nate was excited to have a little sister too, and he quickly stepped into the role of the protective big brother. As we settled into life as a family of four, I noticed that the peace we had long sought was finally within our grasp. Without Kayla's interference, our home felt lighter, filled with love and laughter. It wasn't that we forgot what had happened. Those memories would always be a part of us, but we learned to focus on the present and the future, not the pain of the past. In time, we stopped hearing about Kayla altogether. She seemed to have disappeared from our lives, and we were content with that. Harry sometimes wondered aloud if she had truly learned from her mistakes, or if she was destined to repeat the cycle of toxic behavior with others. But regardless of what the future held for Kayla, it no longer affected us. We had chosen to move forward, and that was what mattered. As Grace grew, I found myself reflecting on how much had changed since the early days of my relationship with Harry. We had faced challenges that I never imagined, from Kayla's meddling to her outright betrayal, but we had come out stronger. Our family, though scared, was closer than ever. And with each passing day, I became more certain that cutting Kayla out of our lives was the best decision we had ever made. There was a time when I believed that family ties were unbreakable, no matter what. But after everything we had been through, I learned that sometimes to protect the ones you love, you have to let go of the ones who hurt you. For us, that meant creating a new family dynamic, one built on trust, support, and unconditional love. Kayla may have tried to tear us apart, but in the end, she only strengthened our bond. Now, as I watch Grace take her first steps and hear Nate laughing in the background, I know without a doubt that we found our happily ever after. We've weathered the storm, and though the journey was difficult, the life we've built together has been worth every struggle. We are finally at peace. As time went on, our lives settled into a beautiful rhythm. Grace blossomed into a lively and curious little girl, her bright laughter filling our home, while Nate flourished in his role as the doting older brother. Harry and I felt deeply blessed, surrounded by the love of our children, our supportive in-laws, and the peace we have fought so hard to protect. Although we rarely talked about Kayla anymore, the events of the past left an undeniable mark. Harry had long made his peace with the fact that he and his sister would likely never reconcile. The trust between them was shattered beyond repair. We no longer heard updates about her life, and neither of us felt the need to reach out. For the sake of our family's well-being, it was better to leave those chapters firmly closed. One afternoon, when Grace had just turned 2, something unexpected happened. A letter arrived in the mail addressed to Harry and me with Kayla's name scrawled on the back. My heart skipped a beat when I saw it. It had been years since we'd last had any contact with her, and I couldn't imagine what she might want now. Harry opened it first, his face tightening as he read through the letter. Without saying a word, he passed it to me. In the letter, Kayla apologized again, this time with a depth and sincerity that we hadn't seen before. She wrote about the years she spent reflecting on the choices she had made, how she had alienated the people who cared about her the most. She explained that she was attending therapy regularly and was working on rebuilding her life, one small step at a time. It wasn't an attempt to re-enter our lives, she said, but rather an acknowledgement of the damage she had caused. I understand now that I was driven by my own fears, my own insecurities, she wrote. I was so blinded by jealousy that I couldn't see what I was doing to my own brother, to you, and to everyone around me. I lost the most important people in my life because I couldn't let go of my resentment. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope that in time, you can find it in your hearts to know that I am truly sorry. The letter ended with a simple wish for us to live in peace and happiness, with the promise that she wouldn't disrupt our lives again. Reading her words brought a mix of emotions, relief, sadness, and, surprisingly, a glimmer of compassion. I had long stopped expecting an apology from Kayla, and now that one had arrived, I wasn't sure how to feel. Could people really change, or was this just another attempt to get back into our lives? I looked at Harry, unsure of what to say. I don't know if she's changed, Harry said softly, echoing my own thoughts. But I think, this time, she might really mean it. We decided to sit down with Harry's parents to share the letter. They were as surprised as we were, and while they felt the weight of Kayla's apology, they too had reservations about letting her back into their lives. It was clear that while the letter had opened the door, none of us were ready to walk through it just yet. Weeks passed, and though the letter lingered in the back of our minds, we remained cautious. We didn't respond, choosing instead to observe from a distance. We heard from mutual acquaintances that Kayla had started fresh in a different town, focusing on herself and keeping a low profile. It seemed she was finally trying to rebuild her life in a more positive direction. As we moved forward, life carried on. Grace started preschool, and Nate was becoming more independent, his personality shining brighter with each passing year. Our home remained a place of love and laughter, filled with the joy of our children and the unwavering support of our family. Then, one evening, as we sat around the dinner table, Nate asked a question that caught me off guard. "Mom, Dad," he said, his voice thoughtful, "do I have an aunt?" Harry and I exchanged a glance. We had always been careful not to talk about Kayla in front of the kids, but as they grew older, it was inevitable that questions would arise. I took a deep breath and smiled gently at Nate. "Yes, sweetheart, you do. Aunt Kayla is Daddy's sister." Nate's eyes lit up with curiosity. "How come we never see her?" I paused, choosing my words carefully. Sometimes, family members don't always get along, and they need space from each other. Aunt Kayla lives far away now, and we haven't seen her in a long time, but that doesn't mean she doesn't love you or think about you. Nate nodded, processing my words in that quiet, thoughtful way he always did. He didn't ask any more questions, but I knew that one day when he was older, we would have to explain more. For now, though, I was content to let the past rest. Life continued to move forward, and over time, the wounds of the past became less painful. Kayla's letter stayed tucked away in a drawer, a reminder of both the damage that had been done and the possibility of healing, even if we weren't ready for it yet. Years passed, and our children grew. Grace turned 5, and Nate entered middle school, each milestone bringing more joy and pride. Harry and I often looked at each other, amazed at how far we had come, both as a couple and as individuals. Our love had been tested in ways we never imagined, but we had come out stronger, our bond unbreakable. As for Kayla, we heard through the grapevine that she had remarried and was living a quiet life. There was no more drama, no more chaos, just silence. It was strange to think that the woman who had once caused so much turmoil had seemingly found peace. Maybe, in the end, she had truly changed, but whether or not we would ever welcome her back into our lives was a decision for another time. For now, we were content to live in the peace we had created, surrounded by the love of our family. And in that peace, we found happiness, healing, and the strength to move forward together.